Okay.
Okay, so we are discussing here what it is, implementing namespace limit, I think.
Exactly, implementing a storage limit.
Yeah, storage limit. Yeah, exactly. Implementing a namespace storage limit that no namespace is capable of hitting. Okay, as an MVC. This is issue 209119.
Exactly.
So I'm just here mostly for answering questions because Nicholas is taking the effort of doing these issues, but as part of the delivery team, I have worked on some of this stuff almost 1 year ago, so I may have some knowledge about it. So up to you.
Okay, so just an overview about the issue. So this is an MVC. We don't limit it. We just want to implement the limitation itself. And we, for as a starting point, we will limit this on GitLab.com to 1 petabyte. So it will not affect any namespace. That's not what we want in the beginning, like for the MVC. But afterwards, we want to have like a limit. So people who like users who go beyond a certain limit need to pay for the storage. That's the whole idea. And we want to implement this, like you can set a limit for all namespaces. And right now we have a limit for a repository or a project, like a 10 gigabyte limit. But you can have, of course, like multiple projects inside your namespace. So we only limit it to 10 gigabyte, and then you can horizontally add more gigabyte. And yeah, so we want to limit this on the top level namespace, therefore, on this like root namespace, what we call this right now. And you then see like a quota, like you see it on the CI minutes right now. This is the whole idea. And yeah, so Alessio, your team already did a lot of work, and I want to give a huge shout out. There's a database case study about namespace storage statistics, where I made some proposals how you can calculate the project sizes. And yeah, so the solution that you decided on was every time a project updates, you schedule something like a job, and then like this job gets scheduled in 1.5 hours later, I think. And then you update the root namespace statistics based on the new sizes. That's correct. And if something between this 1.5 hours changes, like again, you don't create a new job, you just update the current job. That's what I got so far. This is
correct.
Called this aggregation schedule. Okay. So my the question, like adding this limit is relatively easy, and also having like this checking this limit on one page is also relatively easy. The thing is, at some point, like on CI minutes, we want to maybe send out an email that you already have like 80% of your storage used, as an example. And the question is, how can we do that? And I would like to have some thoughts from you on that. And also, yeah, this is something that I would like to hear from you. And otherwise, I looked through the code. Like there are a lot of things going on, but it is mostly clear to me. I have just one question, but Mara did this code. This is about, I will just share the screen quickly. This is just this prune aggregation schedule worker.
Let me, okay, because I resize my window so I can clearly see what you're, okay. So
this worker is pruning the pending rows for aggregation schedule every time at 1 a.m. And it then, yeah, I see it as like, if we have not done everything, like until this point, we clear all of them and we calculate all statistics.
Yeah, it was something like that. Let me check. So source code management. Yeah. I actually don't remember the details of why we did this. Was kind of, if I remember, we had the fear of something getting stuck in the queue. So we say once a day, we just clear everything. And if we have pending works, we do update all the calculation. But
Okay.
I think most of the reasoning, if you can find something in the write-up, so in the database use case blog post, the original issues has all the discussion about it, because there was me, Myra, and Yorick involved into this, and we were constantly discussing way to do this in a performant way. So if it's not in the blog post, it's definitely in the merge request or in the issue.
Thanks. I will check that again. I only looked the code and like the.
Yeah, maybe I can try to find you why we did this, and and I can send you a link.
It's just like but yeah, I'm guessing that, for example, if someone performs an update at 1 a.m. and like maybe it gets too blown up to still queue. I'm not sure. Maybe you want to have one point of time every day where you clear everything. Maybe this would be an issue.
I don't remember the details of why we decided to do this. I think it was kind of a safety measure. If for some reason because there's this point that, let me try to rethink of what we did, because we act outside of transactions for scheduling stuff, because one of the reasons why we had to build all those things, there are two main problems. The one is that the query itself is low, because you act on root namespace level because you want to aggregate on the paying entity, but statistics are recorded by project and direct namespace, so not at the root level. So we had to rebuild the tree in order to accumulate the values on every child item. So this takes time. As well, the table is big, and we're just doing summing calculations. Say, okay, we must save the information somewhere, and this is why we decided to do so. It's so it gets scheduled, but it's outside of a transaction. So I think we're slightly concerned that we may end up writing the schedule on the database, but losing the Redis for some reason, because maybe maybe you restart something or you lose information. So we want to make sure that once a day we have a checkpoint, and we say, because this information in database is supposed to reflect something that is scheduled on Redis, we make sure that once a day we check this database and we reschedule everything. It's something along this line.
Okay, so everything that is left, not all the namespaces again.
Yeah, it should be only thing that is there, because it's aggregation schedules, right? So it's checking
everything that is left. Okay, that sounds good. That makes sense then.
You had another question that I forgot about.
The question was about the scalability of this, and with the current idea that we want to limit it at some point or show like a banner.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I will also discuss this with the scalability team at some point. Maybe they have also ideas, but I would like to get your brain at this as well. So the initial proposal had something like daily job that we run over all namespaces, and it is basically the same issue that we've had before. Like we would need to calculate everything again, which is a lot of work and costs a lot, and it's not viable on GitLab.com.
Okay, so the idea that we had about this was that we should introduce the concept of a soft limit, because one of the reasons why there was a focus shift in our team. So we completed the calculation, and then we dropped the next part of this epics, but there was a lot of UX involved into this, and there's no UX designer in our team. So we were kind of struggling with that part. So the idea was that if you define a hard limit and a soft limit, and the thing that you are talking so far is the hard limit, because you say we want to set a limit that you cannot go over.
Yeah.
But the idea is that if you have a soft limit before, which can be a percentage, can be whatever you want, then you can update the UI or even send a notification email when you hit that value. That still gives time to the user to react. So let's say you have an 80% soft limit. So what you know is that when you change something that affects storage in, I think, up to 1 hour and a half or 2 hours, I don't remember, I think 1 hour and a half, you have the final data that is updated. So the biggest delay you can have is 1 hour and a half, which means that if you can do something like this. If you want to enforce a limit, you basically check the size of what is coming in. And this really depends on the upload you're doing, right? Because for Git, you know upfront. For some artifacts upload, you don't know the size upfront, so you cannot tell if at the end of the upload you will be above the limits. But this really depends on what you're doing. So the point is that when something comes in, you can do your best to understand if this will bring you outside of the limit and deny it. You have to be flexible in this, because you say maybe this will go a bit outside and the next one will not get it. So it cannot be a really hard and strict, but it's something like when you are over, you cannot upload anything on top of that. So if you have this in mind, you can do all the UX and the user communication on a soft limit threshold, which means that the same way you daily or in 1 hour, whatever you update, you can also check if that number is below the soft limit threshold. And this is something that you can even do when you render the page, because at that point, the value is already in database. And if you have the limit at the root namespace, which we don't have at the moment. So if you have that limit and the percentage, you can just check it and show a big banner in every page of the repo, say, you know, you are above the limit. Or the first time you go, you send an email, things like that. So this was our idea. And yeah, basically that's how you can do it.
Do you think it's an issue if you would check on every page request? I imagine that this is an issue that we check on every page request if the namespace that you're in, the root namespace, has storage capacity that is near the limit. I think this would be too costly, right?
But do you think it will? I mean,
I'm not sure. I just heard, like Andreas, I think, mentioned that this query is quite expensive.
The one that gets the root namespace. Is that the problem? Getting the root namespace?
No, the statistics, I think.
The statistic is not expensive because it's already stored.
Sure.
The point is that the
accumulation is the expensive part.
Yeah, exactly. But it's stored for you. So that's why we started with all those work, because we need a performant way for doing it. So this is not a problem. I was more thinking if getting the root namespace, but I don't expect this to be an expensive extra query, because if you think about every page that we show, you still have the breadcrumb or things like that. So the root namespace, I guess it's already loaded somewhere, because we display it in a lot of places. So
that's true.
I don't think. And when you have it, it's a direct query, because you have the ID of the root namespace, and then you have the row with all the limits. So this is not. Another thing that we thought about was that when you do the accumulation, after it, you kick another asynchronous job that updates the status in terms of thresholds. So you don't want to do the calculation, which, I mean, it's not a calculation, it's just checking a percentage over a value, but whatever, every time, but only when something changed. So if something changes, you update the accumulation value, and then you also update the root namespace status, which may be easier if you want to do something like show me all the namespace that are over a certain percentage, and so I should, expect this to pay more, pay less, change storage, whatever. So
this was also my idea, like to have something that like a Boolean flag that on a namespace that says storage size exceeded or something like that, that we set after updating a project. So the question I had was just like, it could be inconsistent, like storing data that is already
This is
you know.
inconsistent. We know, and that's the reason why the root namespace storage, the aggregation table should have. I'm quite sure that is there. There's a column to tell you last time that information was checked.
I don't.
It should be
the statistics table. You mean?
Yeah. Let me check also, because it should be there.
It has.
So
last reset.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, last what was it?
There's a namespace statistics table which has shared. Oh, this is the shared runners. Sorry, this is the shared runners seconds.
I was looking at the schema RB and I noticed that we merged the migration from schema RB to schema. So it happened. Okay, so what is schema? No, it's structure, right? Structure SQL. So the table is, show me, so something like root names, no, what it is? Namespace root statistics. Okay, this one. So updated that.
Okay, it's updated. Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So that information gives you when this statistic was updated last time, right? So you can we had this discussion when because there is one page in the group settings that show you the usage. There's a bug there, so I think it's part of the issue that Marin linked to you. We have if you have more than 4 gigabytes of storage, the GraphQL query breaks.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, because the integer in GraphQL are
it's not a big int. Yeah.
So it basically just break it, but that's another story. So, but there we show the breakdown, so you know by root namespace how much storage you're using, and then you go down each project and you can see the breakdown of LFS, artifacts, and everything. So that's something that we have. So in the discussion, but I don't know if we made in the final version of the image, we said we should write down this overall information is updated up to this date. So it may not be entirely accurate, but yeah, this is, I don't think it ended up in the final design, but we have it on the database, so you can do it.
So the takeaways for me are that it's relatively cheap to calculate the root namespace storage and check it on every page request if you really want to. This is like relatively cheap, and that we could use the current job to execute something like an email which states that you are above a certain.
Yeah, I would say that you should just not use the current job to schedule a new one instead of doing
exactly. This was the idea. Like if the job gets executed, it also schedules a job to check this boundary.
Yeah, exactly. You can check the boundaries and do whatever, saving the storage, saving the result somewhere, sending emails.
Yeah,
whatever you think it's appropriate.
Is there any idea like I mean, I know that we don't track everything yet. We track repository, LFS, wiki size, build artifacts, and storage size and packages size.
Yeah.
There's also the question about like uploads, image uploads on comments, all these things.
There's also the Docker registry is not tracked.
Exactly, yeah, the package.
It should be part of the packages, but it's not tracked. And there is also another issue that I'm not sure if it's closed or not, but this affects what you're working on. So the artifacts, is it artifacts? So what it is, build artifact size can be negative because there's a bug somewhere. I mean, I don't remember the name of the issue, so it's well known. So sometimes the per project information, so not the aggregation, the base value used for checking everything, timeouts. So because it timeouts, it may not write the statistics for that project, And we ended up with a situation where you had negative information, for instance. So this breaks the overall effort of checking the values, obviously. But it's something you should take a look into it, because you may have weird numbers like negatives.
Okay. How is this possible? Like, is this maybe because people, users, overwrite or have overwritten the Git commit history and?
No, this is just for the artifacts upload. So what happens
Okay.
is something like this, that maybe you have, let's say, one artifact of 10 gigabytes, okay? Just made up numbers. And if you delete it, you are removing 10 gigabytes from the value, okay? So what happens is that there could be a situation in which when you add the new artifacts, the storage upgrading query times out. So the project statistics, so not the root namespace, the project one, don't get the plus value. So let's say you add another artifact 1 gigabyte. So say plus 1 gigabyte. This timeouts, so your storage is still 0 because you had plus 10, minus 10, plus 1. Okay, so it this timeout, so you still have 0. Then you delete the artifacts because it's expired or whatever, and then you get a -1. So
I see.
if the +1 timeouted, then your final result is that you have -1 gigabyte of storage in use, which is not true.
Okay. And do we know why this timeout happens?
Yes, it's because of the all those queries are in transactions, and so the project statistic table is very busy. And what happens is that they just time out waiting for the lock on the table.
I see.
I will find you the issue. I can find the issue and send to you so that you can cross-link this to the thing they're working on and be aware of that we have this problem.
That makes sense.
So, and this is one. Packages, okay, we don't know the registry storage, so that's another problem.
But at some point we will add this, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's due to the package group, but I don't know, because we started developing our own fork of the registry, so I think that there is an effort for having this information, and that's another story. And then we have the uploads, the user uploads to discussion issues, epics, whatever. That one is completely untracked, if I remember. But we should start tracking it, because we, at least when we save it, we know the size, so we can do the same.
We could actually, it will be like makes the project statistics table even more busier though.
Well, the problems that we have with this upload is this, that there's no way to delete one. Once you upload, something is there. And the other problem is that when you drag something into the editor, right, it will start the upload immediately. So you drag something, it will be uploaded, and the markdown information will be there for you to link it.
Yeah.
But if you decide not to use that information, so you remove the markdown issues, the upload is still there.
We never tracked it in the backend that this exists even. Yeah. So I see. So this would be actually like front-end code that we track if this got deleted. We also need to send the delete request, which
in one of the issue that Marin linked, there's this it's an epic or a meta issue, I don't remember, where we have a breakdown per kind of storage, and it's all about allowing user to free some spaces. So each line tracks if we have an issue discussing how can we allow a user to delete something, and there is one also for the uploads. Okay,
cool. So there are ideas.
Yeah, there are ideas. Yeah.
Cool.
And
like
that's all.
Prune button.
Yeah. And this is all about this topic. That's me.
It sounds about right. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the input. Like I think my questions are answered in that regard.
Yeah, if you want to write up what is your understanding about this code, so maybe I can just chime in after and say, yeah, this is what I meant, or no, I explained myself terribly, so I'm sorry.
No, this was great.
No, but it could happen, right? So
yeah, sure.
You just dump down what you understood, and then I can help there. In the meantime, I will find you all those related problems and issues that maybe are not part of the list.
Yeah, but at least I have it in mind, and we know.
Yeah, right. So because
iteration,
then you started saying, "Why have negative number here?"
Yeah, that would put me into a rabbit hole of finding it.
So. Okay.
Great.
So
I think stop the recording.
You can stop the recording, which is here.